Hello everyone, this is General Biology class, Chapter 1, Learning about Life. Nearly everyone has an inborn curiosity about the natural world. This chapter will demonstrate how the study of biology connects to your life. So let's start from the very beginning. What is science? Science can be defined as the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. Next, what is biology? The word biology is derived from two Greek words, bios meaning life and logos meaning study, and it's defined as the science of living organisms. An organism is a living entity which can be made up of just one cell, for example, a bacterium, or it can be made up of many cells, for example, plants and animals. The process of science begins with scientific exploration, which means simply looking at things. That means making observations, and then when you observe things, then you ask questions and you look for information. Your recorded observations are your data, and then based on your data, you propose a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a proposed explanation for your observations. A valid hypothesis leads to predictions that can be tested scientifically by experiments. This figure shows the different steps in testing a common problem using the process of science. Let's consider something very common, such as you press the power button on your TV remote, but the TV fails to turn on. So that is an observation that the TV did not turn on. So then there could be so many explanations, but then based upon your previous experience, you want to try the most plausible one. So that is your hypothesis that probably the batteries are dead. Okay, so that is your hypothesis. Now you do some experiments. What you do is you get new batteries and you replace the batteries and you try to turn on the TV again. So that was the experiment. If the TV turns on now, that means your hypothesis has been proved correct. But if the TV still does not turn on, that means your hypothesis was incorrect, and then you think of another possible explanation that maybe the TV is unplugged, and then you would do another experiment to check that hypothesis. Science evolves in baby steps. It is repetitive and non-linear. Scientists communicate with each other when they meet at seminars, during meetings. Before any scientific result gets published, it has to undergo a rigorous evaluation by impartial, qualified, anonymous experts who were definitely not involved in the study, and this process is known as peer review. This figure shows college students presenting their data in a poster in scientific meetings. This is a comprehensive model of the process of science. It is important to distinguish scientific investigations from other ways of thinking. Science usually begins with exploration, either through observations recorded as data or by gathering information from reliable sources. Exploration often raises questions that can be tested by forming a hypothesis. Hypotheses can be investigated by further observations or by conducting experiments. This process sometimes takes the form of a series of steps that can lead to discovery. Scientists often communicate their results through peer-reviewed publications. There is no fixed process of science. Each study proceeds through exploration, testing, communication, and outcomes in different ways. A theory is a broad and comprehensive statement about the world that is supported by the accumulation of a great deal of verifiable evidence. A fact is a piece of information that can be verified by any independent observer. A controlled experiment involves running the same tests on two or more groups that differ in one variable. The control group does not receive the change under investigation, while the experimental group does. A blind experiment is one where information about the experiments is withheld from the participants and or from the scientists who are conducting the experiments. Here a question is being asked and tested scientifically. When turtle hatchlings dig out of the sand, can these juvenile turtles swim in ocean currents or do they just passively drift? Researchers attached tiny satellite trackers to these juvenile turtles. They also attached trackers to floating buckets and released them at the same time and in the same locations. So now these floating buckets act as a control group. Comparison of data between the baby turtles and the floating buckets proved that the turtles moved faster and along different tracks than drifting buckets. So this suggests that they traveled by swimming. This figure illustrates the process of tracking the baby sea turtles. Variables are factors that change in an experiment. Most well-designed experiments involve the researcher changing just one variable at a time with all other aspects held the same. There are two types of variables involved, independent versus dependent. An independent variable is the variable that is changed or controlled in a scientific experiment to test the effects on the dependent variable. A dependent variable is the variable being tested and measured in a scientific experiment. So in the sea turtle experiment, the independent variable, what is being changed was the type of object being tracked, the sea turtles or the floating buckets, while the dependent variable, that means the effect under investigation, was the speed of travel. Performing an experiment blind removes bias on the part of the investigators. This type of study is called a single blind experiment. An experiment in which neither the participant nor the scientist knows which group is the control group, it is known as double-blind experiment. Many medical drug trials include a placebo, a medically ineffective treatment that allows the placebo group to serve as a control group. The table shows the criteria for recognizing blind studies. Be wary of pseudoscience that is falsely presented as following a process of science when in reality it does not. You can learn to recognize reliable sources by looking for indicators. Science versus pseudoscience. Science adheres to a well-recognized scientific method. The results are reproducible, the claims are testable, and it is open to outside review and criticism. All of these features do not hold true for pseudoscience. Recognizing a reliable source. The more criteria a given source meets, the more reliable it is. Moving on to the properties of life. An object is considered alive only if it displays all of these properties simultaneously. Scientists speculate that if extraterrestrial life exists, then it can be recognized by the same properties that have been described for life on Earth. Life on Earth is diverse. Throughout your study of biology, you will frequently come upon examples of 5 unifying themes. First, the relationship between structure and function. Second, flow of information. Third, energy transformations. Fourth, interconnections within systems. And fifth, evolution. At all levels of biology, structure, that means anatomy, and function, that means physiology, are related. Changing structure often results in an altered function, and learning about a component's function will often give insights into its structure. Oxygen diffuses into red blood cells as it enters the blood in the lungs. The indentations of the RBCs increases the surface area through which oxygen can diffuse. Without such indentations, there would be less surface area through which gases could move. Information flow. Throughout living systems, information is stored, transmitted, and used. Within your body, genes provide instructions for building proteins which perform many of life's tasks. Genes are made up of DNA. DNA is constructed from four kinds of chemical building blocks that are chained together. Genetic information is encoded in the sequence of these building blocks, abbreviated here as A, G, C, and T. Pathways that transform energy and matter. Within ecosystems, nutrients are recycled, but energy flows through. All cellular activities require energy, and the input of energy is primarily from the sun. Plants and other producers capture the solar energy and convert it into chemical energy. Organisms use food as a source of energy by breaking the chemical bonds, and in these energy conversions, some energy is lost as heat. So energy flows through an ecosystem, entering as light energy and moving out as heat energy. The figure shows transformations of energy and matter in an ecosystem. Nutrients are recycled within the ecosystem, whereas energy flows into and out of the ecosystem. So within all living cells, metabolism occurs. Metabolism can be defined as the sum total of all chemical reactions, and metabolism continuously converts energy from one form to another as matter is recycled. Interactions within biological systems. Life can be studied on many levels, from simple molecules to the entire biosphere. As complexity increases, novel properties emerge. For example, the cell is the smallest unit that can possibly display all characteristics of life. Zooming in on life, we see life at the smallest level, the most simplest one, comprising of molecules and atoms that aggregate to form organelles. Organelles are like small machineries inside a factory, and that factory would be a cell. So organelles make up cells. Cell is the basic unit of life. Cells aggregate together to perform a common function, and then they become tissues. Tissues come together to perform a common function, and they make up organs. For example, your lung is an organ, your stomach is an organ. Then organs work together to form organ systems. For example, digestive system, respiratory system. Organ systems together make up a living thing that is an organism. A group of organisms that are present together at the same time at the same place and that can interbreed with each other are known as populations. Populations would give rise to species. Species come together to form bigger aggregations known as communities. Communities can be abiotic, that means non-living, or living, that means biotic communities. So abiotic and biotic communities together would constitute the ecosystems, and ecosystems come together to form the largest level of living matter, that is living and non-living matter, that is the biosphere. Evolution can be defined as the process that changed life's unity into its present-day diversity. It is the change that has transformed or modified life on Earth from its earliest primitive forms to its more developed present-day living organisms. Charles Darwin established the ideas of evolution. He called it descent with modification. He proposed that this was done through natural selection, which is unequal reproductive success, in his 1859 publication, The Origin of Species. Natural selection leads to adaptations to the environment, which, when passed from generation to generation, is the mechanism of evolution. The figure shows the publication by Darwin. Darwin proposed struggle for existence, survival of the fittest, and fittest here means reproductive fitness. Mutations are the raw materials for evolution. Evolution cannot occur in the absence of mutation. A mutation is simply a change in the DNA sequence of a gene. It occurs randomly, and natural selection acts on these mutations to edit. The results of natural selection are adaptations, adaptations of organisms to their specific habitat, to their specific living environment. The figure shows natural selection in action. So in the cow, there is a bacterium with random mutation that confers antibiotic resistance. So usually bacteria vary in ability to resist the antibiotic. By chance, a few bacteria are resistant. Now, when antibiotic is given to the cow, the majority of bacteria are killed by the antibiotic, but the few resistant bacteria, they will tend to survive. And as the resistant bacteria reproduce, the genes for antibiotic resistance are being passed along to the next generation in higher frequency. And then generation after generation, the bacteria population adapts to the environment by natural selection. Now, by looking at this figure, try to apply the major themes of biology to the study of green sea turtles. Now try answering this question and the next one and the next one. If we compare DNA sequences between different species, it can give us a lot of information on their evolutionary relationships. The more homology between the DNA sequences of two species, the more recent the divergence. That means species that are very similar, they share a common ancestor at a relatively recent branch point on the tree of life. This tree represents a hypothesis, a tentative model based on both the fossil record and a comparison of DNA sequences in present-day animals. As new evidence about the evolutionary history of turtles emerges, this tree will inevitably change. So the take-home message is that science is not about absolutes of facts or a rigid dogma. Instead, scientific knowledge is tentative, reflecting degrees of confidence closely correlated to the strength of the evidence.